Welcome back to our discussion about energy and how windmills work. Last time we talked about how wind was generated. This time we're going to talk about how windmills are placed and how they're generating energy. We got to think about where are windmills placed. Here's a 3D imagination picture of a mountain range with a big valley running through it, right? What we were talking about before, like these winds, they're trying to go into the bigger part of the landmass, and they're trying to move away from the ocean over to the landmass. And so they're trying to rise up across these mountains and go over to the landmass. Now, if we look at a bigger part of the land and we say, hey, there's some mountains and there's a valley that runs up between the mountains and there's an ocean and air is trying to go across from the ocean over to the land. We think, hey, there's these mountains in the way, right? The air has the choice to go either through the valley that's there or across the mountains. Well, the thing is for it to go across the mountains, it has to raise up an elevation, it cools off, and all that moisture will drop out. And it's also a lot of work to get over those mountains. So the air would just rather go the path of least resistance and just go right over the other side through the valley, right? And so what happens is these valleys get a lot of wind. And you can see it in places like the Palm Desert or some other mountain valleys and that. And the air will just try to rip through there, right? And so there's always a big wind that happens through these valleys. And so then we come along as people and we think, hey, where can we put a windmill? And the logical choice, of course, is where we have the most wind and the most consistent wind. And that's going to be in these areas like offshore or in these valleys, and it's going to be in these areas that really this air is trying to transport this moist air from the ocean out over to the landmass. And so, here we come along and we'll put these windmills in, and then they act as kind of a restrictor, just like the mountain does. And so it sort of restricts the flow trying to go in there. In reality, we're changing the air pattern going from the ocean to the landmass by putting these windmills in these windy areas. And in the big scheme of things, you could change the moisture content of that air, and you could potentially reduce the amount of rainfall that the land will see. And so now we've got to talk again a little bit about energy, right? So energy exists everywhere. And it comes from the sun or from warmth, it comes from tides, burning stuff or whatever. And even though energy exists everywhere, it's got to be in a useful form to be able to use it. And so you need to have like a battery or a fuel tank to have a car go long distances, right? So you might have energy in a waterfall or in the sun, but you can't just stick the sun on your car and make it go. No, it's like you have to convert it from the sun to electricity and then, put it in your car, right? And so, a lot of times we'll claim that, there's these zero emission cars or whatever else, but in reality, there's no real green energy source. You can't get something for nothing. It's just a law of physics. All energy comes at some sort of cost. There's no energy that exists for free. There's some kind of downside to every energy that's out there. For wind energy, the energy is created by the sun and the earth forces. And in nature, the sun and the wind is what's driving all of the climate from one place to another. It's driving the whole ecosystem, right? It's moving water from here to there. This is what drives the weather on the planet. You're taking out the sun's energy that was put into the earth to move all of this air and move all of this water around, right? And so really by definition, we are affecting the climate by installing windmills. We are preventing some amount of airflow, and the airflow has all this moisture and all this stuff, right? But then the question is does it matter? There's people out there that say, oh, no, we aren't going to affect the climate with windmills. Oh, no, the benefits far outweigh the cost, blah, blah, blah. And they point at studies and they point at models, just like every other thing that's been done in mankind. It's like, well, somebody says it's fine, so we're going to do it. The thing is there have been many people in the course of time that have been fooled by their calculations and fooled by the model that they built. Odds are the data is incomplete. And maybe right now, because we don't have that many windmills out there, maybe there's not much of an effect. But there is a point where these windmills begin to matter. You can't just build them indefinitely and not affect the climate. Thing is mankind's really good at finding something that's cool, and then they capitalize on it, right? It's like, if you can sell milk from one cow, why not get 100 and we'll sell truckloads, right? And get lots of money, right? Well, it's the same thing with windmills. Hey, if one green windmill is good, then let's build 1,000,000. But the problem is when do we affect the climate with all of this? When do we actually make a difference to the earth? When do we stop the water flow and the air flows and make places drier or wetter and affect the storms and maybe make more fires or whatever? When is that? Does installing these windmills in specific regions like rainforests or high wind valleys or offshore, Do they impact the climate more than maybe some other places do? Like maybe an open field would be less impactful than some of these other places, right? How many can we build? What's the limit? Does anybody even know? There is an answer to these questions, but I don't think anybody's even talking about this stuff because they're just thinking, hey, it's green, let's go, right? And anyways, I think there's consequences to this in the long run. And the bottom line is hey, when it comes to energy, you know what? We got to use it. We need it to feed ourselves. We need it to do all this stuff. But we got to stop thinking of green energy like it's some source of magical miracle beans, right? All energy, including green energy, affects the climate to some degree. If we're really concerned about our climate, we really need to stop believing in these magic beans and stop believing that things like, oh, electric cars are going to save the earth. Like, we need to start managing our energy use, our energy sources, and being proactive about wasteful burning of our resources. There is so much we can do that is better for this planet, but it takes time and it takes diligence, right? And you know what? We are going to talk more about that, but for now, this is Windmills. Hopefully it's interesting. So, hope you have a great day. Thank you for watching.